Benjamin Dixon Show is only possible with listener support. Go to www.patreon.com/The BPD Show.
We're going to be here for months with a judge that already made up his mind. It's ridiculous. He's a Democrat judge, he's an operative, and it's ridiculous. Other than that, things went very well.
That's the voice of former President Donald Trump, who began his $250 million New York civil fraud case being brought against him by New York Attorney General Letitia James. Now, the lawsuit was initiated back in September of 2022. And the current judge that Donald Trump is sitting under has previously ruled against them, which is interesting because Donald Trump is speaking of this judge as though he had a jury standing between him and the judge. He doesn't. In fact, he is not having a jury trial. And according to Trump, it's an affront to justice as to why he doesn't have a jury trial, when in reality, it's because of his feckless attorneys.
I was going to come out and say that, as you know, we're not entitled to a jury, which is pretty unusual in the United States of America. So we think it's very unfair that I don't have a jury. But
look at how he frames this, the fact that he's not having a jury trial. Instead, he's having a bench trial. He's framing this as some type of miscarriage of justice, which was picked up by his supporters. They're all lamenting now that he's not having a jury trial. He's not going to be able to use or benefit from jury nullification. And he's making it seem as though it's some type of attack on him as president, when in reality, it is the fault of his attorney, who forgot to check off the box on the form selecting a jury trial. I mean, this is amateur hour at its best. And listen to his attorney, Alina Baba, try to cover her butt on the news last night, when in reality, everyone in this country realizes that the former president of the United States has burned through so many attorneys that the only attorney that he could get to represent him in this case is such an amateur that she forgot to check off the box requesting a jury trial.
Like that. And I have to address this one common misconception in the press, and unfortunately it just keeps getting repeated, which is that we had this great option to have a box checked for a jury. No, we didn't have that. That's not how this works.
Actually, that's exactly how it works. There's an image of the complaint against Donald Trump circulating around, the actual complaint against Donald Trump circling around the internet, that shows very clearly that they checked off the box to waive their right to a jury trial. And so they are now saddled with a bench trial with a judge who not only previously ruled against Donald Trump, and I don't think that is as important as the way we see Donald Trump speaking about the judge. You know, anyone who has ever had to deal with the criminal justice system understands the last thing that you want to do is be caught attacking a judge. But of course, the former president feels so entitled, so privileged, that he believes that he has the right to spit, rhetorically speaking, in the face of the judge presiding over this trial, even though he's having a bench trial.
This is a judge that should be disbarred. This is a judge that should be out of office. This is a judge that some people say could be charged criminally for what he's doing. He's interfering with an election, and it's a disgrace.
Put a pin there where he says he's interfering with an election. I want to come back to that. But first, he's speaking of New York Justice author Engoron, who previously determined that Trump engaged in fraudulent activity over years. And this is the same justice who gave the Trump organization, essentially gave them the corporate death penalty. Now, I think this is both ignorant of Donald Trump, right, because of his ego, but there might be some what George Bush called strategery underneath this, because in a lot of ways, by Donald Trump being able to carry out this public fiasco that he's doing in front of the media, he's seizing every opportunity he can to use the media to sandbag this trial. By doing this and attacking the judge so vociferously, he is creating a narrative in the United States that no matter what this judge decides, the judge has it out for Donald Trump. Why would the judge have it out for Donald Trump? Well, because Donald Trump is attacking him every single day. And there's no reasonable person Well, there's no reasonable people on the right in this country right now anyway, but they will never be able to accept the ruling of this judge if for no other reason than the very public war that Donald Trump is waging against them. They are going to assume, they are going to conclude that any decision that comes from the judge will be mired in animosity because of how Donald Trump is attacking him in the media. Now, setting that aside, it is absolutely ridiculous for a defendant to publicly wage a war against a judge, but we are going to see the extent of extremely wealthy, extremely white conservative privilege in this country. Let's see how far they can go with this. It's not only Donald Trump that's on trial here. The entire organization is on trial. His sons and his daughter, they are also on trial. Here's Eric Trump on Fox News last night responding to the beginning of the civil fraud case from New York.
Because, Sean, they don't care. They don't care about the details. Mar-a-Lago is one of the most valuable properties anywhere in the world, worth well over $1 billion. Look at the portfolio of properties. They're incredible. And there's no one that's done more for the New York City skyline than Donald Trump. We hire literally and employ thousands and thousands of workers. But those details don't matter to these monsters.
Okay, well, here are a few details. The Attorney General's office suggests that Donald Trump and his children, including Eric, misrepresented their financial statements, inflating their worth by approximately $3.6 billion from 2016 to 2021. Here are a few more details. The Attorney General's office aims to confiscate all of their ill-gotten profits from bank loans and impose a $250 million penalty on them and revoke their business license in New York. How about those details, Eric? Here is Attorney General Letitia James as she outlines their case on the court steps.
Today, we will prove our other claims. My message is simple. No matter how powerful you are, no matter how much money you think you may have, no one is above the law. And it is my responsibility and my duty and my job to enforce it. The law is both powerful and fragile. And today in court, we will prove our case.
The law is both powerful and fragile. And I think we as Americans are witnessing this firsthand as we see the threat that someone like Donald Trump plays, the threat that he is to our legal system, to our system of democracy. And this last clip of Trump, you're going to hear him try to make the claim that this was a victimless crime. He's not going to call it a crime, but he's essentially saying that no one was hurt. The banks weren't hurt in this, which really kind of speaks to the pathetic nature of this particular person, of Donald Trump, right? He's simultaneously using and asserting all of his energy, all of his economic and political capital and his social capital to challenge the legal system of the United States to the point of breaking it, a breaking point, bringing it to its knees, wondering if America can survive this man's ego. And at the end of the day, it boils down to a cheapskate con artist trying to inflate his numbers so that he can get more money from banks. And so as he's explaining this, he couldn't explain it without first going after Attorney General Letitia James. Listen.
We have a racist attorney general who's a horror show, who ran on the basis that she was going to get Trump before she even knew anything about me. She used this to run for governor. She failed in her attempt to run for governor. She had virtually no polling. She came back and she said, well, now I'll go back to get Trump again. And this is what we have. It's a scam. It's a sham. Just so you know, my financial statements are phenomenal. They are actually less in terms of the numbers used than the actual net worth. The actual net worth is substantially more. No bank was affected. No bank was hurt. They don't even know why they have to be involved. And they've so testified. They can't believe that they're involved because they were paid back on time. There were no defaults. There were no problems. And it was like a perfect client. In the meantime, people are being murdered all over the sidewalks of New York. There was no victim here.
That's called a whataboutism. What about all the other crimes that are happening in the city of New York? Pay no attention to his crime because he paid the banks back. When we come back, we're going to talk about what's going on in the House of Representatives. Keven McCarthy is in serious trouble. More of the Benjamin Dixon Show right after this break.
They see what I'm on, ain't no vixen. I might like do it that top down. I keep it tuned with a high power. Put it on me, I'm blessed. Blessed. Big bag, manifest the sky, no stress. Keep no evil around me, can't ground me. I built it since when I had less. No hex on, God can't pause. Look at how far we progress. Whatever we do. Yeah.
Welcome back to The Benjamin Dixon Show. Visit us online at thebenjamindixonshow.com.
Welcome back.
The gentleman will state the form of his resolution.
Declaring the office of Speaker of the House of Representatives to be vacant. Resolved that the office of Speaker of the House of Representatives is hereby declared to be vacant.
That was the voice of Republican Representative Matt Gaetz from the 1st Congressional District of Florida, making a motion to vacate the office of the Speaker of the House, Keven McCarthy, who, if you would recall the beginning of this session of Congress, has been at the mercy of the most extreme elements of his party since he got elected as Speaker of the House. That was the deal. This was the threat that Matt Gaetz made all along, that at any point, if he was dissatisfied with the performance of his own leader, Republican Keven McCarthy, that he would make a motion to vacate the office of the Speaker, and that's exactly what he's done. To this, Keven McCarthy responded on Twitter simply saying, "Bring it." And then, as if we were still in high school, Matt Gaetz replied, "I just did." We are really looking at the American government being reduced down to high school politics. Bring it on. Oh, it's already been brought. Here's Keven McCarthy this morning on CNBC discussing the situation and the possibility of making a deal with Democrats in order to preserve his speakership.
Speaker, what are the Democrats asking you for? As you try to build support, I imagine, from Democrats in this case, I imagine they're going to try to drive a hard bargain.
You know what? They haven't asked for anything. I'm not going to provide anything. And let's just be clear. When Nancy Pelosi was the minority leader, she would always come in and she told Boehner and Paul that she didn't believe in them utilizing this, how they removed Boehner, that she would always vote it down, not based upon saving an individual, but based upon what's good for government, what's good for the institution as a whole. And that's the question has to be. Are we now in a situation in our government that we just provided keeping government open, that we're going to play politics with how you become speaker? If that's the case, then I think we've got real problems.
Oh, no, we certainly have real problems, but the problem doesn't begin with how Matt Gaetz is trying to use his motion to vacate. No, the problem began a long time ago when Republicans started down this pathway towards scorched earth politics being wielded against America, being wielded against the Democratic Party, and now it's being wielded internally. And it was so funny to see Newt Gingrich, of all people, come out against Matt Gaetz in this situation, because it was honestly Newt Gingrich back in the 90s with Bill Clinton who first implemented successfully, I might add, the scorched earth game of chicken styled politics in the modern era. But nevertheless, that didn't stop Gingrich from taking to Twitter and saying this, quote, "Is Matt Gaetz secretly an agent for the Democratic Party? No one else is doing as much to undermine, weaken, and cripple the House GOP." Well, I mean, to be honest with you, I feel like Matt Gaetz is simply taking the next logical step in this type of scorched earth politics. You always escalate. And when you're not in a position to escalate against your enemy, your political rival, the Democrats, you escalate internally. He learned from you, Gingrich. That said, listen to this clip of Matt Gaetz that I know without a shadow of a doubt is going to end up in some Democratic ad, because he puts it in a way better than I've heard most Democrats put it.
It is going to be difficult for my Republican friends to keep calling President Biden feeble while he continues to take Speaker McCarthy's lunch money in every negotiation.
And to be honest with you, this is really just Matt Gaetz making good on his threats. He currently has 5 Republicans, including himself, who are supporting a vote to oust McCarthy. And the truth is, according to the numbers, I think he only has to have 4. He has Eli Crane, who's the Republican from Arizona's 2nd Congressional District, Bob Good of Virginia's 5th, Andy Biggs of Arizona's 5th, and Tim Burchett of Tennessee's 2nd. And I want you to listen to this clip of Tim Burchett pretty much saying if the vote was held right now, he would vote against McCarthy.
Currently praying about it, but I would, if it was right now, I would vote to oust him. Yes.
Okay, so if the vote was held right now, and of course it will have to be held in the next 2 days, do you foresee that changing, or are you a yes vote, do you believe, over the next 2 days to oust Kevin McCarthy?
I don't really think I will, other than the phone calls that I'll get right after they see this broadcast.
That was Burchett on CNN last night speaking with Caitlin Collins. But again, Kevin McCarthy is in trouble. And that is because he tried to rise to power while appeasing the most extreme elements in his party. The question is whether or not Democrats are going to save him. Now, there are some Democrats, and I vacillate back and forth, honestly. Like, the Schadenfreude is delicious. Just to be able to sit back and watch the Republicans eat themselves alive. It's phenomenal. You know the meme from Godzilla, when two monsters are fighting, let them fight. However, because we are dealing with such an extreme time in Republican politics specifically, this may present the Democrats with an opportunity to marginalize the most extreme Republicans who are a much bigger threat to the United States of America than just to being a threat to the Speaker of the House. The ouster of Kevin McCarthy is not as big of a deal as the slow coup that is happening, and it's being forwarded by all of the Republicans, yes, but the extremist MAGA Republicans, like Matt Gaetz, who still, he parties and goes along with the Marjorie Taylor Greens of the world. And I only make that distinction because Marjorie Taylor Greene is clearly on Kevin McCarthy's side in this instance. However, if the Democrats could use this as an opportunity to fracture the Republican coalition, specifically alienating the most extreme elements of the Republican Party, that might do some good for democracy. But, when it's kind of a hard decision because you really do want to sit back and just watch these people destroy themselves because they've earned it. Kevin McCarthy has earned exactly what he's getting right here. Okay, when we come back, we have to discuss this ongoing lawsuit against the Fearless Fund, which is a black venture capital fund that is being sued because they dared to invest in black women. More of the Benjamin Dixon Show after this.
City of mine, it never gets me down, yeah. I was born in the city, I was raised on its edges. My pop worked his life when it's complex. I found love in its center. If I could live
Go to www.patreon.com/TheBPD Show and get twice the content and unfiltered interviews without any of the commercial interruptions.
Here we go. Very special welcome to 3 new patrons. Infinite Content, thank you so much for becoming a patron. TL, thank you so much for becoming a patron. And Moonbeam Phillips, thank you so much for becoming a patron. This entire patron party is for the 3 of you. Go and turn it up. Whoa. You too can become a part of this prestigious and most prodigious patron family by going to patreon.com/TheBPD Show, where you get twice the content, none of the commercial interruptions, and you get access to our upcoming, revitalized, renewed, and relaunching patron parties. Patreon.com/TheBPD Show, and we will be back after this commercial break unless you're a patron, because you don't get commercials. You just get this content.
Welcome back to the Benjamin Dixon Show. Visit us online at thebenjamindixonshow.com.
Welcome back. Yep. Welcome back. Coming up later in today's episode, I will be discussing a whistleblower's claims that Republican Arkansas Governor Sarah Huckabee Sanders used $19,000 to send a friend on a trip to France and told the taxpayers that she used it for a lectern, for a podium. We'll discuss that coming up later on in today's episode. But I have been tracking for some time a man by the name of Ed Blum. If you don't know him, you should know him because he is actively using his entire life, his career, to undermine the progress that black people have gotten in this country as a result of civil rights legislation, particularly as a result of affirmative action. He was critical. He was the man who started the organizations that recruited the Asian American students who wanted to sue to end affirmative action. That's who Ed Blum is. This is all he does. He's also being mirrored by one of Donald Trump's former assistants by the name of Stephen Miller, who has started an organization that goes around the country now looking for reverse discrimination cases that they can sue on behalf of. And so we're living in the age of the American empire where the tools, the language, and the justice system that was previously used to help Black people get civil rights, get the right to vote, and to make progress, to overcome. I mean, that's all affirmative action was, right? It's just a minor tool that was used to try to rectify some of the historic ills of discrimination, Jim Crow, and slavery in this country. They have committed themselves to using the argument of reverse discrimination to undermine all of the civil rights movement. They have already done away with affirmative action, Ed Blum specifically, and now they're going after private entities' ability to prioritize Black people as a means. This is why they're doing it, right? These corporations that are doing anything along the lines of diversity inclusion, including the Fearless Fund, which we'll get to their case in a moment. But we have people in this country who have dedicated their entire lives to undermining Black people's progress through the arguments of reverse discrimination. And this is what's happening with the Fearless Fund. And if you want to know how egregious people are like Ed Blum, they're going after the Freedom Fund over a pot of about $20,000 that was set aside for small business grants for Black women. $20,000. And I really want you to think about the type of sociopathy that would make you drill down on such a small amount when we think about the pool of venture capital that's out there. And so what Ed Blum and Stephen Miller and this so-called American Alliance for Equal Rights, they saw Black women getting the absolute smallest amount of advantage in $20,000 worth of venture capital and said, absolutely the hell not. We can't let these Black women get this. That's how malevolent these monsters are. And that's why they're groups that they have these innocuous sounding names, right? And not even innocuous. They sound like they're perfect for equality and for democracy. This American Alliance for Equal Rights is actually nothing more than a tool using an argument of reverse racism to ensure that Black people never get equal rights in this country, that we never get a fraction of the opportunity that white Americans get in this country. $20,000, that's what they targeted. And it's $20,000 of private equity, right? It's $20,000 of private funds, not a federal government funding, right? But this is private venture capital. And Ed Blum and his so-called American Alliance for Equal Rights is saying, absolutely not. We can't let Black women get that because that would be reverse racism. I want you to also consider that Ed Blum, in his case against affirmative action, he called his organization Student for Fair Admissions. That's the organization that they use to recruit Asian American students to claim that affirmative action was discriminatory, and that's how they got rid of affirmative action. Ed Blum is quite honestly one of the most effective white supremacist activists on the face of the planet. He was also the man behind the Shelby versus Holder case, the Supreme Court decision that gutted the Civil Rights Act, or rather the Voting Rights Act, Article 5, which gave Southern states the freedom to use whatever policy that they wanted to disenfranchise Black people without having to go and get it confirmed or verified or checked out by the Department of Justice. That law, that was gutted also by Ed Blum. And so he is a one-man activist who is committed to ensuring that Black people do not get an inch in this country. He won't even let Black women get $20,000. And I'm not trying to flex on the $20,000, but honestly, anyone who started a business knows that $20,000 does not give you much of a runway. I mean, depending on the type of business, that might be less than 1 month's worth of runway for you to run your business. And Ed Blum said, we can't let Black women even get that. Oh, and by the way, the Fearless Fund was founded by Black women. So Black women can't reward Black women with their own private equity and their own private funds because, well, there's some white guy out there who's like, oh, that's reverse discrimination. Never mind the historic baggage of this country. Never mind the ravages of redlining. Never mind the years of Jim Crow that financially targeted and exploited black people. Never mind the fact that this country was built off of the descendants of enslaved people. The only reason this country is a superpower to begin with is because of the free labor they stole from black people. Never mind that historical baggage. In the year of our Lord 2023, if you dare give a black woman $20,000, you are engaging in reverse discrimination. Well, here's the thing I think we should do. Because this country does have a precedent of making racially specific repairs, right? Reparations to groups based on the racially specific harm that was committed by this country towards them. I think that we should skip all the rest of these cases and go directly to a case for reparations. Because if these individual white Americans are able to use the argument of reverse discrimination to undermine private remedies for specific racial ills, then it is incumbent upon the United States of America to take care of this once and for all. Let's just do it once and for all, because it's very clear that the United States of America has a debt to black people. That is without question. And we do have the precedent of the United States of America settling its debts with racially specific groups because of racially specific harms. Then let's go ahead and have this argument about reparations all the way to the Supreme Court. Stop nickeling and diming us with $20,000 here and $20,000 there. And these white conservatives are just outraged about that pocket change, right? Let's go for the full thing. Let's go for the fact that the United States of America has a documented debt to black people, descendants of enslaved people, to the tunes of hundreds of billions of dollars. Let's go ahead and have that argument, since people like Ed Blum are going to make it impossible for us to have private specific remedies to social ills that were committed by the United States of America. Let's just go to the United States of America and you pay your debt. And then we'll take care of ourselves without the need of racially specific policies, because we would have had a correction to the racially specific harm that was caused by this country.
Seem like the more I fly, the more they try to take me down. I call your phone, I treat your voice like it's my favorite sound.
Coming up in the Patrons Only episode, I want to discuss this viral clip of rap superstar Jay-Z, who was kind of complaining about a cousin of his asking for $4,800 to make an investment and to start a company. While we're discussing the Fearless Fund's $20,000, Jay-Z's cousin was asking him for $4,800, and Jay-Z said no. Now, I just wanted you to keep in mind that he's a billionaire, folks. You know, he's a black billionaire, but he's a billionaire, and $4,800 to him is like one penny to the rest of us. And I know most of us probably won't go by and pass up a penny or a dime because times are hard. But Jay-Z is saying he's got to hold on to that penny like dear life, because cousins were asking for money to start a business. Anyway, I've got a lot of feelings about it. We'll discuss that. Patreon.com/the BPD show. I want to close with a clip of this sister off of TikTok. It's a white sister breaking down very succinctly what's going on in Arkansas with Republican Governor Sarah Huckabee Sanders using taxpayer dollars to send a friend to France, but then telling the people of Arkansas that it was actually for a lectern, for a podium. That turns out that podium, when you looked it up online, only cost about $700. There's a big gap between $700 and $19,000. Listen in.
Well, if this story about Sarah Huckabee Sanders doesn't make you want to eat the rich, then you're probably the 1%. So get off my page. Whistleblower came forward and said that Arkansas Governor Sarah Huckabee Sanders took taxpayer dollars and spent it on something she wasn't supposed to, and then turned around and doctored receipts so that the taxpayers thought she bought something legitimate with that money. The problem is the amount was $19,000, and the thing that she bought to try to cover up her illicit spending was a podium. A $19,000 podium. This is a picture of it. $19,029.25, which was purchased by her administration back in June. This news broke the other day when Congress was trying not to shut down the government, so I don't think enough people have heard about this. But essentially, she took public taxpayer dollars and flew a friend to France. Then she tried to backtrack and fake receipts and suggest that that money that she spent to send her friend to France was really spent on this podium, this $19,000 podium. So when the taxpayers were like, yo, where's that $20,000 podium you made us pay for? Must be real snazzy. This is what she showed them. This $700 podium from Amazon. I'm pretty sure this is the same one.
Now, I'm not sure if that's literally the same podium, but everything else that she said in that clip is absolutely true, according to the Arkansas Advocate, who published an article stating that a whistleblower's attorney claims Arkansas governor's office altered and withheld public records. Now, the whistleblower says they have receipts to document not only the fabrication, but the cover-up, and it's connecting it to the Sanders administration attempt to change the Freedom of Information Act laws in the state of Arkansas. I gotta go. That's my music. That's my time. Patreon.com/The BPD Show for more.
The Benjamin Dixon Show is only possible with listener support. Go to www.patreon.com/The BPD Show and support The Benjamin Dixon Show. If you like this episode, be sure to share, like, and subscribe.